Center along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Minnesota's mining industry is facing a challenge unlike anything in recent history. With low ore prices and layoffs mounting, it could be a long road back to prosperity on the Iron Range.
The future of Duluth's Lake Superior Zoo is being contemplated by city leaders. Members of the Lake Superior Zoo Board join us tonight.
And we'll have the latest business headlines and watch a news file story from 25 years ago.
It's all coming up next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. It sure is nice to see the local landscape greening up again, Denny.
It seems like somebody threw a switch and all of a sudden we've got spring.
Yeah, a little bit of rain and things look really nice.
Things green up quickly.
Feels good, and some good green topics tonight. So
yeah, we do, that's for sure. Thanks, Julie. Well, it seems hardly a week goes by without more bad news from Minnesota's iron mining industry. Now this week it was Magnetation announcing the company is filing for bankruptcy. While Magnetation didn't announce any new layoffs, it is another troubling sign for the embattled range. The main culprit is a steep worldwide drop in the price of iron ore, and there is no relief in sight. Joining us is Tony Barrett, professor of economics in the School of Business and Technology at the College of St. Scholastica. And Don Fosnacht is director of the Center for Applied Research and Technology Development at UMD's Natural Resources Research Institute. Both of you, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. Tony, the industry was doing so well just a year or so ago.
Yeah.
What's happened since?
Yeah, well, what's happened is the world slowed down, especially China, and their companies are still cranking out the steel, and they're looking for a place to sell it, and that's us.
But the economy is doing well.
Our economy's doing well.
So the economy is high, this industry is low.
Yeah, and our economy's not doing that great, but we're doing as well as anyone else in the rest of the world. We're have relatively low trade barriers. It makes it easy to sell steel here cheaply.
Mm-hmm. Don, the steel industry has always been cyclical, as anybody who is from around these parts knows. Can you put the current downturn into perspective for us?
Well, it's both what we've experienced in the past as far as the ups and downs of the economy, but it has structural problems too. In that over the last 10 years, we have lost clients of our blast furnace pellets. I think I estimated 8 blast furnaces have closed over that period of time. That's the equivalent of about 17 million tons of lost pellet sales. In addition, material substitution is coming in. Anybody who is buying the F-150 should know that that's going to displace about 550,000 tons of iron ore pellets as well. And if the other trucks switch, and I think model year a couple years from now, that's the equivalent of 1.8 million tons more loss of iron ore pellets. So when you look at that, those are sort of structural things. If you don't have a blast furnace to sell your taconite pellets to, well, you lose market share. And so it's a pretty vicious thing that's going on right now. And the third thing that's very important is we have new management in Cliffs as well as in U.S. Steel. And U.S. Steel has already decided to convert a blast furnace to an electric arc furnace down in Alabama. And that's about a 2.3 million ton loss of iron ore pellets again.
Why is this conversion taking place in terms of getting rid of the old blast furnaces and going toward the electric arc?
Efficiency, cheaper. I mean, all the good reasons.
Economic flexibility,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Tony, we keep hearing the term the illegal dumping of steel. Is it really illegal or is it unliked?
It's unliked. That's a good way to put it. It's highly discouraged, and it's viewed internationally as a bad practice, and any country can act against it without worrying about any.
There's no illegality about it.
Technically, there's no illegality. It's just very bad form.
Just to give you a perspective on that, I think in 2014 we had more or less 40 million tons of imported steel. That's equivalent of about 47 million tons of crude steel production if we made it ourselves. That's a lot of iron ore pellets.
It is.
So when you look at the overall impact of imports on our overall industry, whether it's steel or it's iron ore, it's tremendous.
Yeah, and the steel imports really surged at the end of last year, early this year. And that's why it became a crisis, and you started seeing the shutdowns.
Let's go back to talking about that conversion to the away from the blast furnaces.
To the electric arcs?
Yeah, to the electric arcs. Are there process improvements that our taconite companies could make in this area that could really
absolutely.
make it work for them?
Yeah, one of the markets we don't serve is the electric arc furnace industry. And what they need is a more metallic product. So if you look at the makeup of how we make steel in the U.S., 2/3 of that is by electric arc furnace. So we keep serving a shrinking integrated sector that has blast furnaces. To be able to get into the other part, we really have to take the oxygen out of the iron ore, and that's by a process called direct reduction. So we actually use the abundance of natural gas we now have to take the oxygen out, and you leave a product that's largely metallic iron. They can use that, and in fact, it would allow them to optimize how they do their processing in terms of iron content in their steel.
Don, is steel a dying commodity? In other words, 100 years from now, could we be using materials that are not as heavy, maybe stronger than steel?
We have substitution. You can do that today.
Aluminum.
Aluminum, titanium is another one that have certain properties that are better than steel. But I think steel will be there, but we'll have a lot of material substitution as well, driven by things like greenhouse gas reduction, fleet averages on cars, automobiles, trucks, things of that nature. And that's really what's driving this F-150 move. If you look at the fuel standards going into the future, there's tremendous change that is going to be dictated just by those fuel standards.
Tony, you've been watching the industry for a long time. What do you think the iron ore industry has to do in our area to stay competitive?
We've been talking about DRI since I've been here. That's 25 years.
25 years, we were
25
saying.
years, and it seems obvious that it should happen. It seemed obvious 25 years ago. It's expensive. It's a huge investment, but at some point it has to happen. I mean, it just has to happen. It's a question of whether it's forced on us, or if we don't make the adjustments, maybe we do look at a real end of an era on the Iron Range.
Are the economics
I'll give you
there?
a perspective on that one thing. I was at a talk in November. It was a conference on DRI, and one of the fellows that gave a talk there basically looked at gas pricing for the next 15 years. And you could buy natural gas in 2024 at $4 per billion BTUs. That's on the futures, which says that gas price is going to be stable for some period of time. Back when I joined NRI, we looked at direct reduction as well, and at that time, prices of natural gas were going way up. In fact, I think they surged to about $10 per million BTUs. So you got a different economic climate because of your energy prices. That will be a big driver.
Is there anything Washington can do to turn this around?
Well, they could impose tariffs on imported steel, and they're allowed to do that if they find dumping. It takes so long. It's frustrating.
Given the makeup of Congress and the White House now, will Washington do anything to turn this
Well,
around?
we talked about this, is that there's been beneficiaries of this cheap steel. I mean, anyone who's building a stadium is getting cheaper steel. It doesn't have to be imported. All the steel's cheaper. So there's real beneficiaries from this. It's just not in northeastern Minnesota.
And we have as a society, do we want to have a viable industry or not for the long term? Because things can switch again, as we just came through on iron ore pricing and steel pricing, if we don't have our own.
Are there some things that are taking place at NRI, new technologies that are being explored that you see as holding some really strong potential for the industry?
We got a three-pronged attack on this. First, we want to get as much value out of the rock we mine as possible. So that means finding uses for aggregate, things of that nature. We know how to recover all iron types, whether it's magnetic or hematitic. They get into that in their mines. Right now they just take the magnetic iron. And also the conversion to DRI. So we're working on all three efforts. And we think we have some good processing that could be implemented but it will involve some capital plans.
And I understand that the DRI could present some challenges in terms of transportation too with the Great Lakes fleet. What's the state of preparedness there?
Yeah, we actually had discussion on that at this recent SME conference, and it looks like as long as you can get it down to the target customer in about 2 weeks, our fleet can handle it. If you go on a Great Lakes, it's a little bit different than perhaps going on the ocean where they have salt water, which is more corrosive.
Yeah. With all these layoffs, talk to us a little bit about support services also suffering as a result.
Oh, everything.
Everything.
I mean, it's like you throw a rock in the water and you watch the ripples go out.
Right.
The impact's going to be hardest nearby communities where the workers are living. They're the ones taking the big brunt of it. But everything up on the range, all the way down to here, is going to be
Transports.
negatively affected. Transports,
Yeah.
retail. I mean, there's no positive spin on layoffs like this.
Long-term layoffs, are these?
Well, that's
the open thing.
$60,000 question.
Well, the problem you have is when you start taking out the blast furnaces like U.S. Steel is doing down in Alabama, that's a direct loss of iron ore. So that's a long-term situation there, unless we convert to DRI.
I would say just for this cycle, watch China. Chinese economy slowing down. I don't know if their leadership can take that too long politically. They need economic growth.
Yeah.
If they start
Yeah.
growing again, they'll start consuming their own steel, and that takes the pressure off us.
Now it's interesting that SR still seems to be going forward with the taconite plant at a time when taconite might have a bit of an iffy future. Does that surprise you?
Well, in this industry, if you're going to make an investment, you make it long term. You take so long to do it and get all the permissions and everything like that. They've just gotten bad luck. I mean, this is the worst time in the world to open up a new mine. And then remember, they were originally talking about having their own steel mill up
Right.
there.
Right.
And if that ever happens, that would be good. I'm not holding my breath on that, but yeah, it's just a question of really bad timing.
What about non-ferrous? Where does that fit into the whole formula looking
Well,
forward?
we have actually great mineral wealth in northeast Minnesota here. Non-ferrous is one thing. There's another material called ilmenite, which can make titanium oxides. We think that is another potential industry for the future. So these other aspects of recovering the copper nickel obviously can have a tremendous economic impact as long as it's done in the right way.
Yeah.
So that's certainly a possibility, but for the short term, we still have to get through certain things like the EIS for the non-ferrous
Right.
to make sure it's going to be done right.
All right, Don, Tony, great discussion. Thank you so very much.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
The Fitkers Building and others in this downtown area are historically rich, and the Duluth Heritage Preservation Commission wants everyone to know it.
Over the years, people have seen, especially the Fitkers district, as a good one to start out with. It's small, it's very significant in terms of the city's history, and it relates well to the downtown waterfront, in which there's so much activity right now.
The commission is putting together a proposal to designate a Fitkers Heritage Preservation District, something that has only been talked about for years. Tonight, the commission met to inform the public about the history of the area. The boundaries of the district are still up in the air, but the commission wants all of the buildings that face Superior Street in that area included.
Good marketing thing, but it also helps just to preserve this wonderful, rich architectural history we have. There are benefits to property owners in terms of tax incentives, especially if we can get this established as a national district.
The commission hopes to have the district designated by midsummer. Stacy Scheibel, KDLH News.
The Lake Superior Zoo in western Duluth has attracted families and tourists for generations, but a devastating flood in 2012 forced the closing of some popular exhibits, and the zoo has struggled in recent times with dropping attendance. The future of the zoo took center stage last week when a city administration report to the City Council included some non-animal options. So what is the best option for the zoo's future? Joining us now is Diana Bouschor Dodge, a member of the Lake Superior Zoological Society Board, which operates the zoo, and Mike Polzin is also a member of the Zoological Society Board of Directors. And thanks to both of you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Julie.
Diana, the report that was released at the council meeting, it seemed like it kind of took the board a little bit off guard.
Well, we have been working, a small group has been working with the city and trying to develop some different plans for the zoo. I do think that some of this was new. The non-animal options, I think they weren't a total surprise. I think we knew they were out there, but it was the breadth of it was a little bit of a surprise. But we're here to work with the city and get some public input on that and try to work towards building a collaborative effort to try to come up with something that works for the zoo and includes animals.
It seems the non-animal headline garnered a lot of attention with the media over the past week, and certainly that resulted in a lot of chatter amongst people at the coffee table over the week. Is it really a possibility that the Duluth Zoo will have no animals?
You know, the city owns all the assets, the property
that's right.
itself and all the animals and such. So inevitably, I think the ultimate decision lies with them. But we do see several components of their plans that they've worked with the consultants that we could bring into the zoo now. We actually are very grateful for the city's engagement with conversation and looking for some future plans here. I think status quo is not what we should be after. We should be looking for some opportunity for renewal, for growth, for engagement with the city and other stakeholders. And actually, I think this is a very inviting opportunity for us.
Now, there have been some numbers that were tossed around this week that it would cost $12 to $16 million to bring the zoo up to national standards. Talk about the condition of the zoo itself and what some of those improvements are that really need to be made to bring the level of the zoo up to where you'd like to see it.
Well, depending on the features that we want to incorporate, certainly, you know, the bigger checkbook we can get, the more improvements we can put in there and the more features and such. But, you know, there's some of these exhibits we lost in 2012. We have not been able to renew them. We've kind of been treading water a little bit. So there's some features that need to be renewed or even taken out and regenerated. We're looking at accreditation inspection coming up here next year. And we know that there's some things that might be lacking in structure or policies there that we want to renew too. But given that there's some investment of money both by the state and by the city, we know we can put on a good show, a really nice venue for any improvements there. And I think it would be very gratifying to the constituents or to all the members.
Younger citizens of the Northland may have different ideas about a zoo than older citizens of the Northland. Do you hope to hear from both the younger generations and the older generations?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that is exciting about some of these options that have been kind of brought forth is that there are zoo options, and everybody, you know, I think there was an article in the paper where there was something about the bear downtown, and everybody said everybody likes to watch wild things. And so I think that there's an aspect that people like to be able to come and see the animals, but there's also an aspect in these new plans that deals with some non-animal activities that go along with the zoo. Things that people can come and make it a destination and come and see the animals, and there may be a ropes course or something different that would keep people engaged for a longer period of time so they can all interchange. So I think that brings in both your traditional older view of the zoo and some of these younger families that are looking for
The
some different
reality
things.
is that even years ago, back when I was a youngster, the zoo had different options. It wasn't only animals. I well recall a small carnival there and a small train ride that
Yes.
you could meander through the zoo on. And that was a lot of fun. So it wasn't only animals even back then.
Well, one of the features now that I don't think gets enough publicity is our educational outreach, both on-site and off-site. We have two Zoomobiles that we'll take to nursing homes or company picnics or to children's schools and such. And the training and the programming that they do is topic specific and age specific for whoever the audience is.
Interesting.
And they have a lot of day camps and overnights and such. So there's a very significant growing population of educational outreach there that I think people need to know more about also.
The wonderful thing is we can't almost keep up. We got another Zoomobile this year because the education piece is growing leaps and bounds over the years, even since the flood.
Yeah.
So that's an exciting piece.
Grand Avenue will be getting some work. Do you hope to kind of revamp the entrance to the zoo?
Absolutely, that's a part of the plan. I think not even a part of these two plans, but a part of the plan just with the Grand Avenue renovation. There's going to be a new entrance to the zoo. It's going to actually have an entrance that comes right on, instead of kind of meandering through the parking lot, it's going to be a direct entrance to the zoo. And that's a part of the Grand Avenue expansion right now.
And of course, anytime there is road construction, it also means that people avoid those areas with their cars. Is there a strategy in place to try to keep the traffic flowing toward the zoo during these 2 years of construction?
Of course, Grand Avenue will still have one-way traffic in either direction, and we're working with a marketing consultant to do some special programming that has to do with construction and such, but we'll have special programs that will entice people to come and visit our zoo. As Diana mentioned, we'll have a very significant presence on Grand Avenue, but so it's all for the better.
Don, the zoo has what's called member families. Tell us about that.
Well, we have over 2,000 member families, which represents over 9,000 individuals that are annual members at the zoo. We have, this last year, 2014, was the highest year in the last 4 years for visitation. So our visitation record has been steadily increasing even before the zoo since 2011. And our annual revenues have actually shown that same increase. So there's been growth both in membership, but just in the regular visits, from Canada, from states other than Minnesota and Wisconsin. That's all on the rise.
Who do you see really needing to be at the table as you start to take a close look at what the future of the zoo should be, and how do you bring those people there?
Frankly, I think that the community is one of the biggest members that we want at the table, and not just the Duluth community, but the surrounding area, because it's not just Duluthians that come to the zoo. You have people coming down from Canada, you have people from the range that come down and visit the zoo. So we really want the community members to talk with their council members and let them know how they feel about the zoo, what the future is that they would like to see. They can talk to members of the board, but I think really getting in touch with the council members so that we can all work together and try to come up with a plan. This St. Louis River Corridor is an exciting plan. We'd like to be part of that, and we'd like to make sure that we hear everyone's voice. And I think that's the way to do it, is by collaborating and getting the information to us as to what they want to see.
Has all the zoo's flood damage been repaired?
No, it hasn't. Polar Shores was a significant exhibit on the zoo grounds. With the loss of Berlin, our bear, we have not really had the financial means to take that down or rehabilitate that to another feature. We'd like to see that taken care of, because with upcoming accreditation and inspection, that'll be flagged as a significant feature that should be renewed or something. That, as Diana mentioned, the St. Louis River Corridor, we see the zoo as an anchor for that, for tourism and for activity and educational outreach and sustainability and such. So we're excited about all that. I think it's a great plan.
You mentioned the polar exhibit, and of course folks still remember the polar bears, Berlin. Where are those animals, and what's the chance of them coming back there?
Well, Berlin is in Kansas City, and she is actually, believe it or not, on a breeding program in Kansas City. Some of the animals, I think the the seals and the otters are down, I think Como Zoo?
I believe so, yeah.
Are down at Como Zoo. I think the reality is we have to have a responsible place to bring them back to. And right now, the way Polar Shores is, we can't bring them back in that condition. So I think the reality is we have to create an exhibit that we can bring the animals back to in an AZA accredited way. And currently, we can't bring them back in the conditions that it's in. We have to do something with that Polar Shores, and that's, that's the part that we have to focus on.
All right. Well, Diana and Mike, thank you so much, and thanks for volunteering your time for this.
Thank you.
It's a community asset.
Yep, thanks for bringing
very
it forward.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, here's a look at some of the week's business stories from Business North. Now, despite the mining downturn, Duluth-based Elite, which supplies electricity to the mines, reported first quarter net income of $39.9 million. Now, that's an increase from $33.5 million 1 year ago. The planned workforce cuts at U.S. Steel's Mintac plant and the idling of Magnetation's Keewatin plant will have minimal impact on electricity sales through August. That according to Elite Chief Executive Al Hodnick during the company's conference call Thursday. After that, Hodnick said the corporation believes it can sell electricity on the spot market and still achieve predicted financial results.
Northland College in Ashland has announced plans to add men's and women's lacrosse and to construct a multi-million-dollar lacrosse and soccer stadium. Stadium construction will begin in July and is slated for completion by the end of this year. Northland College trustee and alumnus Craig Ponzio donated money for the stadium and to re-engineer the soccer field. The stadium will feature a 1,000-seat grandstand, Wi-Fi, a lighting system, press box, and restrooms. Additional donors have contributed money to fund the first 3 years of lacrosse.
Well, the Duluth-based Hant-Friede law firm has opened a new office in Cloquet. Attorney David C. Lindgren, formerly of Newby and Lindgren, has joined Hant-Friede in an of-counsel position. He will continue to be based out of the Cloquet office and will be joined there by other attorneys from Hant-Friede. The law firm that was established in 1899 has 13 partners and is the second largest in the region. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
If you have a comment on our show, give us a call. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. You also can go to the WDSE website for program updates, news at the station, and to find out about public TV events in the community. And of course, Denny, that includes the Channel 8 Kids Club Circus, which is at the middle school in Superior on Saturday.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, always a great...
Generally draws a crowd.
Draws a great crowd.
Yeah.
The staff here loves it and always looks forward to it.
I know they're getting ready tonight for tomorrow.
Yep, and you can buy tickets at the door.
All right.
So for Denny and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend.